welcome back. I'm here with my August plan with me, so this is a monthly one. I'm going to be setting up my bullet journal for the month of August with some monthly goals pages and a little bit of watercolor for decoration, and I'm first going to flip through my July month here. So we have our goals page right here. It looks a little sparse. I do have some stuff I really need to catch up on, and then my app development stuff has been making progress, but there were some other things that I found out kind of in the middle of the month that I needed to do before I do this other stuff. So maybe I'll like fill that in just so I can check it off. Maybe I won't, I'm not sure yet. And then for my game development work, I've been kind of blocked. Pretty frustrating, but I'm doing my best to move past it. I'm having some issues with a tool we use that I haven't been able to get any work done. But for the most part, I've been trucking away. I do want to catch up on some art creation this weekend. I'm actually filming this on Saturday because I have a little bit of time to myself for the quiet. And on the right side here, I had just a little monthly events page. I'm not going to do another one of these because I didn't really use it. I just kind of filled these in once and then didn't ever look at them again, which is kind of what I do whenever I try to use these monthly pages. Next, I had tried this habit tracker where instead of having like a grid, I would just add things that I did. You know, build up on them. And it was a nice idea, but ultimately it made it really hard at a glance to see what I was keeping up with really well and what I wasn't, because I would have had to reference these little numbers instead of usually, like, for example, I did my productivity tracker over here the way I normally do habits, and I can easily see, you know, which days I did really good with writing, which days I did a bunch of art creation, and so I'm gonna go back to a habit tracker that's more like this for the next month. Next, I have my Pokemon Go tracker, which was a really cute idea. I just didn't end up filling it out very much. You can see I have all these days where I just forgot to fill things out. And then I also had changed, instead of tracking how many eggs I hatched during that day, I just filled in the total eventually because it's something I can just look up in the app instead of having to remember what I actually did. So I probably won't do another one of these, but it was cute and I have been playing quite a lot of Pokemon Go, so having it here was just kind of a fun little experiment. Next we have my gratitude and expenses pages. It is only the 21st today, so these look like I haven't been keeping up, but actually I'm right on track. And then my expenses, I usually do lag a couple of days to let all the transactions post to my account before I plug them in here. And then my writing tracker, which my writing has been going a lot better this month. I did not meet the fairly lofty goals I set for the month, but I have been making steady progress, and I have been doing quite a bit of drafting by hand. I don't usually tally my words until I type them up into the computer, so I have a whole chapter past this word count number that I need to fill in, but as you can see, I should be right about here with each of my projects, and I've only got about this much, maybe this much if I type up that chapter, but you know, I'm still feeling pretty good about this month. I am getting back into my routine, I'm getting back into the story. I kind of fell out of it a little bit. I was having trouble sticking with this particular project, but I feel like I'm really back on the vein of the story, and so I'm just gonna keep going next month, and I don't think I'm going to include this little tracker. It was very fun, but I think I'm gonna stick with something that's more like this and not use quite as much space for my writing tracker for next month. And now we're into my first weekly spread. I did really like this timeline thing. I ended up stopped using this because it was just it was another step in my planning process, and I got really, really busy near the end of this month. I'm still quite busy, so I'm kind of trimming down my planning routine a little bit. Here I have some daily pages. I started to smush these up into multiple days per page just because I was not filling them in. I didn't have time. And I got some shimmering ink on this page, but you can see that. Here is my second weekly page. I kept the same layout for this page, and you can see I did get a little bit overwhelmed with this week and did not keep up with it, so this was part of my decision to cut down on my weekly spreads a little bit. Here are some more dailies. I really liked this one with the black and the purple ink. And then here is my current week. I got super busy, like I mentioned, and I ended up leaving out entire days. Here's my weekly goals page, and this was kind of a new layout here where I split my weekly goals into categories. Typically I only do this with the monthlies, but I tried it for this weekly and I do like it. I'm not sure if I'll keep up with this for the next week, but maybe I will. We'll see. And then here we are at today. I'm gonna try and fit Sunday on here, but I might have to put it over here. And then I really did want to do a bit of journaling about where I'm at with all my projects and where I'd like to be in the next month. Just before we actually get into August, think about what I want to do with August. And while I'm going through things I did in July, if you follow my Instagram, you'll know I printed out this little passion planner notebook. They make these printable pages available if you share their stuff or if you sign up for their mailing list, and I happily did. And I have been having so much fun with this. You can see, I think I've showed this part before, but I did a little bit of a roadmap thing. And some work in the monthly. I haven't been using this as much since I have all my monthly stuff in my bullet journal, but I've been experimenting with little daily checkboxes and things. And then this is where I've really been having so much fun with the Passion Planner, is with these little timelines. I love these, and I love blocking out pieces of my day with great big colors like this. And one of the reasons I printed a Passion Planner instead of just buying one was so I could print it on this, it's like inkjet paper, but it's a like premium version inkjet paper, so it's a little bit nicer, and the fountain pen does hold up very well. There is a little bit of bleeding right here, you can see, but I think that was because I kind of scribbled it in kind of hard. But I did some test writing on this paper before printing it, and it held up very well, so I wanted to make sure if I was going to use a pre-printed planner at all that it was on quality paper. So this is what I have. I might buy a physical one, like one that Passion Planner prints in the future, but I do have quite a bit of time in here. I used so much paper, and I actually had to stitch it together because it was too much to staple. But as far as how I use this spread goes, I pretty much just copy my weekly goals from my bullet journal into here. For the most part, I start my daily planning in the bullet journal. I get my thoughts out, I get my tasks out for the day, and then I move into here and I think about what here I had blocked out work for my day job, and then kind of written in things that I do later. And then in future spreads, I color coded it a little bit more clearly, so I switched to this pink color for my day job stuff, and then this coral color for all of my side projects. And then the ink I use here is just various fountain pens. We've got Rubber Oster Shark Blue, or sorry, school blue in my Shark Pen. What was this one? Color vs. Andromeda, I think, was this pink color. And then a little bit of Robert Oster Purple Rock, which looks gray in some lighting and looks a little bit purple in other lighting. And then the colors that you see, the background colors here, are just Tombow dual brush pens. So if I grab a couple of these, I got a whole like pack of them, so I have all these colors. And then the coral I bought separately because it was a color I really wanted to make sure I have, and you can see I use it so much it's like wearing all the words off. And so if we keep flipping, here's the current week. I'm right here working on my video just like I have in my little schedule. And I did try to cut down a little bit on the vibrancy of the colors I'm using, so I switched to using this gray color for my day job and then marking out things like errands or important meetings in a yellow color so it kind of contrasts a little bit. If I just have bright colors all the way down like I kind of did here, it's a little bit hard to differentiate between things if it's all so bright. So I'm still experimenting. Every week I try something new, and this is my current week, and I'm a huge fan of how this looks. This style of planning where you have blocks of time really works very well for me. I've talked about time blocking a lot, and it's really the only way for me to avoid overbooking myself, because I will just schedule everything in the entire world. If all I have is a list, like you can see here, I did a brain dump of all the things I wanted to do this weekend. This is a lot of stuff. So I'm probably not going to do all of this stuff this weekend, but by breaking it down into these smaller lists and then making sure everything in that list will actually fit into a single day is really what helps me get things done, and not just have this crazy optimistic plan that doesn't get done because it's physically impossible, and then I kind of feel bad for not getting it done. So, you know, this works. This works really well for me, and I'm liking it a lot. And I feel like it does give me a certain amount of creative freedom, even though it is very structured. I do have this space down here, and then I have these are split into work and personal. I pretty much just use each of these sections however I want, and then I just make a color denoting what it's for. And there are a lot of pieces to this, so we have these today's focus bars up at the top that I don't always use, and we have the week's focus and this little box for good things that happened. So it does have a lot of pieces, but I pretty much just use each of these pieces however I need to in a given week. I cleaned out my Shark Pen and filled it with Diamine Coral. I actually got it like all over my fingers. And it turns out, I thought I flushed the pen pretty thoroughly, but it turns out there was still some blue in there. So I was trying to scribble out the blue. It's still kind of muddy, so I might have just completely muddied up that converter full of ink, but oh well. I'm probably gonna get a whole bottle of the Diamine Coral, so it'll be fine. And then here is my clean, fresh spread for next week. And you can see I do have the monthly reflection pages in here, so I'll fill those out at the end of the month. It's only the 21st, like I said, so not going to fill these out today. And then I'll do something with this. I'm not sure if I want to do something like this where I have these little tasks laid out, because I didn't really, like, these were writing goals and I just consistently stopped meeting them around week 2, and so maybe I'll include something like that, maybe I won't, I'm not sure. And I've just been adding these little notes in here about things I'm doing. It's kind of fun, not a lot of pressure, which I like. Okay, back to today's setup. Like I said, I'm going to save this page for the kind of planning for the month of August mentally and in terms of project management. And then I've gone and kind of marked out what I want to do here. I'm going to switch to this 2 days per page layout that I had. Let's see, was it in this notebook? It might have been. Yep, here it was. So I did this week 19 of this year. What was this? March? Might have been March. Oh, May. Okay. Right, I wasn't even in this notebook in March, I don't think. Okay, we're all on the same page now. So, I've done this before. I like it a lot. I want to include a water tracker and a little space for notes, and then just task list and journaling. I want to keep it simple. I'm going to decorate around each of these boxes with watercolor and maybe a little bit of ink depending on how the watercoloring goes. So I have a goals section, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Oh, did I miss a page? There we go. Okay, goals, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then, monthly goals page. It's gonna look very similar to this one, but I'm gonna split it into 3 categories: creative work, game company work, and then app development. This is gonna be like a productivity log, kind of like I had in my habits page for July. So here's my new habits page. And one thing I want to change is just the title of this page. And I want to make it seem a little bit more fun. So I'm going to give it a cute title that has to do with self-care rather than just the word habits. Because habits just isn't, it's not very fun, it's not very goal. And even though the things that I typically put on this list are things I need to do to stay healthy and to take care of myself, I want to put the focus on nourishing my body and, you know, keeping myself feeling good and happy rather than work, just more work that I have to do. So I just want to reframe this a little bit. And then my writing tracker is going to go here. I'm going to go back to more of a log type tracker. So I'm going to have my hours spent, the words I did, and then a little note about what I got done, or, you know, what if I have a problem, if I'm stuck on something, just a little log of how my writing work is going. And then we have gratitude and expenses. These haven't changed, they probably never will. And then this is going to be the start of my weekly pages for August. So there you have it. I'm going to do a little bit of a fast forward, maybe talk over it when I set things up if I have something else to add. Like I said, I'm going to do some watercolor and a little bit of ink to decorate all these pages. I want to do something warm and inviting. August is a very, very hot month here in Oregon. It's like the middle of our summer. July is pretty warm, but August is where things get really toasty. So I'm going to do some reds and some oranges, maybe some pinks. We'll see what it turns out like, but I'm feeling very summery and very hot. The watercolors I'm using here are my Winsor & Newton Cotman watercolors, so they're not the artist grade, they're just one step down. And these are actually all colors that I've mixed up myself. I think I've talked about this in a past video. In order to get a wide range of colors that I didn't have to mix every single time I wanted to paint, I just bought some primary colors and mixed up all these half pans of various shades and hues that I wanted. I don't think this is the proper way to use watercolor, but so far it's worked for me. I've got some nice colors here that I use again and again. The greens I don't use as much, and some of the blues and greens didn't turn out quite like I wanted, and this might be because of the mixing I did. But good news, I've actually ordered some actual new colors of watercolor, so I'm gonna be moving away from this process very slowly as I get a little bit of money here and there to afford said watercolors because they do kind of, each tube is only about 10 bucks or 7 bucks depending on the color, but it can really pile up when you're buying lots and lots of different colors of paint. So I'm gonna slowly build up my watercolor paint collection and see what kind of cool new pigments I get out of it and what new shades I can create. These weekly pages came out really nice. I wasn't quite sure if I wanted to add the ink over the top afterwards, but as you will see, I did, and I do really like the result. I think it adds some kind of extra dimension of style. It looks a little bit retro to me, especially the next spread, which I do in some purple shades rather than the oranges and the yellows. But I'm really gonna like filling this in. I tried to suggest at where the header and the water tracker is going to be, but I didn't want to draw too much into these spaces. I still do want to leave a little bit of freedom for my daily planning and some space to do what I want with it. So these are going to be pretty plain to start, and then I'm going to kind of decorate more as I go. But this really is a good starting point. There's a lot to look at here, and I really like that about my spreads. I like to have, something fun to open up my notebook to, and I think that this is the same for a lot of other bullet journalers where they do the decorating because they like looking at it. It's not a chore as much as it is a bonus, a little reward for yourself. When you do your work and you get to work out of this beautiful, pretty decorated notebook. For the second half of next week, I changed the color scheme a little bit to do more purples and pinks rather than reds and oranges. And I know I said I was going to do mostly warm colors, but the problem is if I have two spreads that are the same color, it's really hard for me to tell which one I'm looking at. I know that sounds probably ridiculous to a lot of people, but color and layout is really how I differentiate things visually. So I really just switched up the color scheme a little bit on this page so that when I open up my notebook, I know exactly where I am, I know which part of the week I'm in, and I know what needs to be on these pages. Because I have before started filling out the wrong day in my bullet journal ahead of time just because I got confused. So, as silly as that is, that's why. And I use this technique a lot where I will outline a square for my tasks to go in and then just paint around the edges, and then I have these spaces all clean and ready for new text, and then I still have the decoration around the edges. Some people I know will do washi tape to keep very, very crisp, straight edges for these boxes, but I don't think that's necessary unless you're doing something that is very, very paint heavy. So if you're doing like a whole wash on the page, or if you're using the blotting method, I have seen a few other YouTubers do these full page covers of some things, like Natalie Bowers will use a blotter to blot watercolor on the page. She does it very lightly, so she just writes on top, but if you wanted to use some darker colors or some more saturated colors, you could put down washi tape or tape down some paper to cover up the sections that you want to keep white. The next page here is the monthly goals page and the little productivity tracker that I wanted to do. I had written in some things, so first I just erased my pencil marks, and I tried doing these little triangle based lines for the headers, but what ended up happening is that the triangle pattern here was just a little bit too busy, so when I wrote on top of it, it was a little bit hard to read. I think I'm just gonna leave it like that. I'm not gonna try to fix it, but just a note, if you're doing something similar, really make sure that things you're putting text on top of are either very light, as in like translucent or pale, or that you're kind of making it big enough that you can fit the letters in larger patches of color, if that makes sense, so that instead of having these little busy lines between all the triangles kind of detracting from your focus, you have a great bigger swatch of color. So for example, if I had made these triangles twice as big, I think I could have written smaller text on them and it wouldn't have been so visually busy. But you live and you learn. For the most part, this goals page will work just fine. I'll still use it, and I realize doing my voiceover that I forgot my cute little progress bars, so I'll probably go in and just put some in underneath those headers before I fill in all my tasks below, because I really do like those little progress bars. They're so fun to fill up, and it makes me feel like I'm doing something. I get a lot done, but getting that little bit of victory, that feeling of success, the little things really facilitate that. As I was filling in the text on the August goals page, I kept thinking that it was wrong. Like I kept thinking there's no way it's August already. There's just no way. The year just started. But turns out it is August next month, and no amount of denial is going to change that. And getting over to the right side of this spread, like I mentioned, it's going to be a pretty basic productivity tracker. I'm just going to check off a column in these for every different project I work on. So I have writing, art, game development, and app development, and then I'm going to put a little note in there about what I got done. If I'm blocked on something, if I'm having a problem, I'm going to put a little note in there just so I can look back and see what I actually did last month at the end of August. And here, I'm so sorry, I forgot to record some of this spread. I pretty much just painted in these shapes here, slowly changing from purple to pink to red to orange. And then here I'm just finishing up the page with yellow. These are just my habit trackers that I'm changing the name of slightly to use something like the self tracker, or I think I put in the bottom here, check yourself before you wreck yourself, to kind of make things a little fun and whimsical. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, I really want to focus on taking care of myself as a fun thing and not as just another checklist that I need to check off. So I'm trying to do what I can to make these habits seem more like fun things, like, treats for myself, because really they are. They're little treats that I give myself, and myself rewards me back by feeling better and being stronger and, sleeping better. So many things can happen if you do all the things you're supposed to do to take care of your body, and I want to do those things. And then on the right, I kept the decoration for the writing tracker very simple because things like charts with multiple columns of text can get very busy. They can get a little distracting if you put too much detail near them. Like if you just have an entire page full of intricate detail and text, it can be a bit much for the eyes. So I just made this simple like swatch of colors, following the same colors as on the right side or the left side, but just a little bit messier, a little bit more plain. And speaking of messy, don't look too close at the little labels for my self tracker. I thought I would save some time by writing them sideways instead of flipping the journal around, and goodness, they came out so bad. But it's fine. You know, if anyone asks, the messy aesthetic was intentional, right? It's your journal. You can decorate it how you want, and if anyone tells you it's wrong, they're wrong, and you can tell them that. Okay, last spread, and this is my gratitude and expenses. And for the exact same reason that I mentioned before, I always try to keep these pages very simple in decoration because a lot of text goes on here, a lot of visual information to process, and I don't want to be overwhelmed by my notebook just by getting this blast of crazy detailed decoration on every single page. So these ones I just stuck with the same color scheme. I put these patches of color. I tried to jazz up the gratitude page a little bit by making all these little spikes come out of the side, a little bit like fur or feathers or something. And my expense page is even busier on average than my gratitude page because I have the little bars of color and the little labels on each bar. So I kept it even simpler by just adding these blocks of color underneath the bars on the side of the page. So the top one is where I put how much I spent on a particular thing, and then the side is the date. Those are the two axes for this little graph here, and I think it came out really nice. This is gonna look good when it's all filled in. And just a little note on my expense tracker. I've talked about this before, but in order to capture small expenses and very large expenses on the same chart, I have the chart for the first, I think, 7 squares count up by 5s, and then once it gets to 40 or 50, it starts counting up by a greater number. I think it's like 25s. And then the end of the graph counts up by even greater numbers so that I can reach the amount of money I need to reach to count things like my mortgage, which is very expensive, without losing those smaller expenses in this huge graph. And here we are. We made it, all planned up for August and the last week of July. Gonna do a little bit of a flip through here so you can see what I set up. I'm really liking this color scheme. I think I'm gonna enjoy this a lot and probably stick with it throughout the month of August in my weeklies and stuff. And you can check out filled in versions of all these spreads on my Instagram where I post quite frequently. And I just want to thank you for watching this video. I'll be back again with another video, and I hope to see you there. Have a good day. Bye.